Jessica, 33, and I, 35, met while in school at Brown University. It was like finding my other half. We both had dreams of impacting the world and making it a better place by becoming medical professionals. She wanted to be an ER nurse, while I wanted to open my own practice. We had a lot of common interests and truly enjoyed each other's company. We got married 2 years after dating, and the wedding was a fairy tale. All our friends and family had the time of their lives, and I met her childhood friends and had my best friend Eric, who I had known my entire life as my best man. Life couldn't have been better, and our honeymoon in Aruba was full of blue skies, clear water, and white sand beaches. Once I graduated from med school, we moved back home to Akron and got the house of our dreams. 6 bedrooms, a glorious pool, and a garden that she was so proud of. We began thoughts of having a family and started to talk about having kids. Joseph and Kate, our fraternal twins, were born shortly after that. The joy of having children was something that I never thought I could experience, and Jessica truly shined through her parenting skills. Fast forward to 6 months ago. My practice was booming. Joseph and Kate were 5 and enrolled in the private prep school of our dreams. Life was finally feeling like it had a plan, and I couldn't be more content. That is until Jessica started getting called into the ER for extra shifts because of the nurse shortage. Her shifts kept getting longer and longer. As time went on, I started to feel like she was spending more time working than at home with us. Around this time, I noticed that Jessica seemed to have more perfume and makeup on than usual. She would be in a rush when she left the house and came back late from her shift and slipped into bed. When I asked her about it, she said that her patients needed her, and that she had to fulfill her duties. I thought it was strange, but just figured she was super dedicated to her job since that's the kind of person she is. One evening, I secretly hired a nanny to watch the kids and got in my car and followed Jessica to work. As I watched her walk into the ER, I noticed that instead of taking a left and going to her station, she took a right and entered the cafeteria. I was so curious that I decided to follow her, and then that's when I saw Eric, my best man and lifelong friend, who was an ER doctor. I told myself that they worked together, and this was nothing out of the ordinary, but what happened next had my heart racing. Eric told her that his shift was almost over and that they would slip out quietly and head to the hotel. Turns out that she didn't have a shift to work that night, and Eric and her would be evaluating each other's bedside manner. The worst part of it all was that Eric had been married for 10 years and had 3 beautiful children. I was so angry, I wanted to confront them both, but couldn't brave myself to do it. Instead, I got in my car and followed them to the hotel. Once I got there, I found out which room they were in and proceeded to wait in the car for another 30 minutes. At that point, I went into the hotel, up the elevator, and stood silently outside of their room. I pressed my ear to the door to hear what was going on inside, and what I heard made me sick. Let's just say it sounded like a disturbed version of the game Twister. What I thought was a beautiful love story had become twisted. How could the woman I married and the man I trusted pull something like this? I then walked away, still not able to process the truth of what was happening. As I got to the end of the hall, I heard Jessica scream out, "I love you," and my stomach dropped. I drove home, and at that moment knew that my life had just changed forever. How could something so pure be turned into something so disgusting? The logical move was to confront Jessica, get her side of the story, and go from there in a civil way. But something in me must have broken when I felt that betrayal, and I decided to go about it in the most vicious way possible. I developed a plan to completely ruin the lives of both my wife and my double-crossing best friend. All the pieces were in place, and both had a huge amount to lose. In the end, I'd be out of a marriage, but at least I could have the satisfaction of knowing that justice had been served. The next morning, I quietly put on my coat and walked out of my house without a word to anyone. I knew the kids would be in school for the next 7 hours, and Jessica would be at work with Eric all day. I first wanted to let Eric's wife know exactly what was going on. I called her and told her everything, which I figured would result in her calling Eric to confront him. Word must have spread quickly, because 30 minutes later, Jessica began calling me. I missed 5 of her calls, because I had decided to go to the HR department of the hospital where her and Eric worked and told them everything. Given that there was a strict no relationships policy, it was a huge violation of their contracts. They thanked me for the office. At that point, All the pieces were in place, and the fireworks were ready to go off. For the first time since hearing them in the hotel room, I felt a smile spread across my face and a sense of justice penetrating my soul. When I arrived home, Jessica was standing in the driveway crying hysterically, shouting that she was sorry. I confronted her, saying that I had a very busy morning, and pretended to not know what she was talking about. As I asked her what was wrong and comforted her, her crocodile tears suddenly stopped. She looked at me with an expression of disbelief that I had gone about this in such a twisted manner. At that moment, I winked at her and said, "I am a doctor, and I believe that this treatment plan is the proper course of action." The tears started flowing again, and she chased me into the house, continuing to apologize. She begged to explain her side of the story in a frenzy. I was just about to give her the chance to elaborate when her phone rang. It was her dad, and little did she know that the games were just beginning. All I heard for the next 10 minutes was her father yelling at her about how she had no loyalty. Little had she known that I sent the audio recording to her parents as I pulled up to the house, and they happened to love me and the life that I had provided for her and the children. While her father screamed at her, I got a phone call from Eric, who was furious at me. He swore up and down that nothing had happened and that I was totally wrong, and at that moment, I sent him the audio recording as well. His wife had already heard it, and he did not stand a chance. The anger began to give way to a tearful apology from him, and he knew that his marriage was over and that he would lose custody of his children. I signed off, asking him if slapping my wife was worth the price he had paid, and he silently hung up. I then walked over to her and told her that I would be taking full custody of the kids and that I had bought boxes and rented a U-Haul for her to pack her things and leave. She told me that she had nowhere to go, as her mom and dad were furious with her. I replied, "That's too bad, but you should have thought of that before you decided to screw around on me." I suggested that she stay at Eric's, but then remarked that he was kicked out of the house as well. At that point, I asked her to start packing and took a deep breath as she slowly walked away, completely defeated. On the way out, she made a few attempts at reconciling, but I stood firmly and without hesitation. I had won the battle, and there was nothing more to be said. With her head hung low and tears streaming down her face, she walked out of the house, loaded up the U-Haul, and asked if she could change into her work uniform before she left. I told her that wouldn't be necessary, as if she looked at her messages, there should be one from her supervisor that said she was suspended. Sure enough, she checked her messages and started bawling even harder. I walked into the house with a nostalgic feeling of justice penetrating my soul. Later that evening, I would find out that Eric's wife had kicked him out and filed for divorce, in addition to going after full custody of their children. I guess some justice really does exist in this world, and it's a beautiful thing. Jessica and Eric were terminated from their jobs, and they decided to rent out an apartment. Last I heard, the trauma of being found out caused them to break up, and they split. Jessica reached out to her parents, but they cut off all communication, which led to her having to live on her own and struggle. The house, the kids, along with a chunk of Eric's savings and future retirement funds were taken from him in the divorce settlement. As being involved with coworkers is like a scarlet letter in the medical field, he was forced to move out of state and started an auto shop. He's still bitter and says he'll never forgive me, but I couldn't care less. I currently am doing amazing. The kids are growing up so fast, and having them around is a blessing. I've been able to pay off my debt, and the practice is booming. They see Jessica every other weekend and have supervised visitation with a court-appointed individual. Life is never perfect, but if you work hard and do the right thing, things will eventually work out in your favor. To all those out there who have been wronged by your partner, don't give up and never forget the power of justice. Doing the right thing is supposed to be the best option, however, it doesn't give you the warm and fuzzy feeling that completely getting even does. I am not advocating that you come up with an elaborate plan to even the score, but in the moment when your face feels flushed and hot, and a tingling sensation runs up and down your spine, you might just do the same thing. Opie, talk about a bloodbath without a finger being laid on anyone. I would say the moral of the story is not to double-cross your husband when they are a doctor. Doctors are smart, and it makes me wonder if the person who posted this story may have been a surgeon, because that was justice delivered with the precision of one. Overall, OP got it right. I can't believe how nasty his wife was to have kids, a perfect life, and a loving husband, and then rip Opie's heart out by cheating with his best friend. As far as OP's friend Eric goes, I cannot believe how disgusting this guy is. He needs to take a long look in the mirror and realize he has no loyalty in heart. Serves him right for being outcast by the entire medical community. Thank you for sharing this wonderful story with us. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like. Back in February, my wife and I enjoyed a trip to Vegas gifted by my mother-in-law. My MIL joined us and brought some friends. All was well. One of the nights we were there, my wife, Mel, and her friends decided they were going to go to a club in the hotel and we guys were going to go play craps. I got tired and decided to head back to the room. I showered and patiently waited for my wife to return to the room after receiving some detailed texts about what she wanted to do to me that night. She arrived stumbling and was clearly way too drunk for any kind of activity, so I undressed her and got her into bed. I plugged her phone in and was about to go to bed when her phone started blowing up from one of her friends. I answered her phone and they informed me she had left her credit card at the bar. I thanked her for telling me and ended the call. I swamped up as I usually do to close the app one and using, and her phone displayed a text conversation that wasn't in the regular iMessage app but Telegram. It caught my eye and I thought it was strange. I opened it and discovered it was a text between her and one of her colleagues. For context, back in July of 2021, we moved states 3 hours away as my wife kept asking for me to get a transfer with my job. Finally, a transfer was granted and we moved from our old town to a new state. My wife was a principal of an elementary school there, and the male colleague who was texting her is still a principal there. There were photos shared of her in the sexy outfit she wore that night. He told her how hot she looked and the last message was "Love you, baby." I didn't know what to do. I went to her photos and saw she had shared many photos with him. Very intimate photos. I saved all of the photos and sent them to my Google Drive account. I saved all the texts and sent screenshots to my account as well. I then went on to FB Messenger to see what else she has been up to. I saw that one of her ex-boyfriends was expressing how much he missed her and how he should have married her and not me. I then went and deleted all the screenshots from the recently deleted photos folder, making sure she did not know I had screenshotted all of these things. I stayed up all night pacing as she slept drunk. I had his phone number from her phone. I saved it and screenshotted it in the Telegram app to prove it was his number in the messages. I found his address. I found his wife's name and her phone number. I found her on social media. I was ready to blow this all up, but I didn't. I love my wife and I decided to let her explain herself before I blasted them to his wife. I packed my bags and was ready to change my ticket and fly out. But again, I love my wife and this would have caused her great embarrassment if I were to be gone early in the trip, leaving her to explain to her mom and friends where I was and what happened. So again, I stayed put. I also knew that if I left there would be no room for reconciliation. By this time it was about 6 to 7 a.m. I took her phone and went downstairs to the little coffee shop and breakfast place in the hotel. I just helped myself through all of her stuff. I checked the phone statement on my phone and found out how long this had been going on. Just over a year. The first texts came through in December 2020 and then they stopped in December 2021, but clearly they continued talking through the app until February 2022. During all the vacations, dates, and fun little things we did together, I could only assume she was texting him with me right next to. I bought her a coffee, an orange juice, a Red Bull, and a bottle of water so she could sober up when she woke up because we weren't going anywhere. I went back to the room and plugged her phone in. I had everything. I had the idea to log into the Telegram app they were using to talk on my phone's web browser so I could see all of the messages between them. I sat on the bed next to her, sad, angry, heartbroken, and just in disbelief. Finally, at about 11 o'clock she started stirring. She told me to come to lie with her, but I just went and sat next to her. She immediately knew something was wrong when I got into bed with her. I guess you could just feel it. She immediately jumped up and turned to me and asked me what was wrong before I had even said a word. All I said was, "Who is Greg?" She immediately got defensive inside. She asked why I would go through her phone like that. I told her what had happened and that I wasn't snooping through her phone. I explained that someone had called and I saw it. She jumped up and grabbed her phone and went to the bathroom. I opened the app and saw she had sent him a message. I left the app open last night, saw it, then she deleted it. She deleted all of the messages so they disappeared in my web browser as well, but I already had them saved. He replied, "Oh no, am I in trouble?" I couldn't help but laugh. This guy was 41 years old. A principal. Asking if he was in trouble. I found it funny that he did not give a crap to ask how she was. He wasn't worried if I was angry. He wasn't worried if she was okay. She came out of the bathroom and I showed her my phone and said, "You're really going to go text him right now?" She started crying and I began asking all the questions I wanted to be answered. Some questions I knew the answers to. Some questions I did not. I asked if she had sex with him. I asked how long it had been going on. I asked if he had ever been in my bed or in my home. I asked if she loved him. The answer to these questions was no, no, no. I wanted to go to his house. I wanted to burn it down. I wanted to do physical harm to him, but I have a precious daughter and a very good job that requires a security clearance. I finally lost the urge to confront him or hurt him, but I still have the urge to let his wife know. The problem is my wife does not want me to because of her embarrassment, shame, and guilt. But I wonder if it is that or me finding out something she didn't tell me or lied to me about. Who knows, but I want AP's wife to know. She deserves to know. I wanted to post his and her phone hashtag here that night, but I thought that may get me banned as well as into some civil trouble. We have very close friends there. Some of our friends' kids still visit us in our new state and our new home. Some friends are still principals there or work in the school system in the small town. AP's wife does as well, so there are small circles that intersect. Recently, going back through the cell phone records, I remembered that we had attended a marriage conference in February 2021. Sure enough, there was his number on the same dates as the conference. He actually attended the same marriage conference with his wife. It just got worse, it seemed. I also saw that she talked with him on the phone on her birthday, August 2021, while I was arranging a surprise party. She was on the phone for 45 minutes. I practically had to drag her to dinner that night with about 40 people waiting to surprise her. When she saw all the people, she cried and told me she loved me so much that night. I had no idea. I went through my phone and deleted every picture from December 2020 to February 2022 that was intimate, hugging or kissing, or any sexy photos she had sent me or photos of us together on some random trip we had taken. I couldn't delete the pictures of my daughter at the same time, but they make me sad knowing what I know now that she was likely talking to him and coming home to me. Update. She removed the lock from her phone. She has given me full access to her phone. I told her I wanted couples therapy. I wanted her to go to individual therapy. She refused couples therapy but went to individual therapy. I asked again for couples therapy and she refused again. I finally told her that she did not get to dictate how this went. She either went to couples therapy or left. I told her I would not move out. She could move out. My daughter would stay with me as I would be in the house, and she needed to stay in the environment that she knew she was livid. She said that I would kick her out and keep our daughter from her. I said I would never keep her from her mom, but I would have full custody and she could see her every other weekend. She finally agreed. She cried. She apologized. She explained most of it to me, but it's only been 5 months and I keep getting questions in my head and I ask them. She gets so upset when I bring it up. I told her again that I was sorry that my grief was inconvenient to her happiness. I told her she did not get to just move on like she wanted to. She just thinks if we don't talk about it, it will disappear and we will be fine. I started going to the gym. I'm looking better. She has noticed other women starting to give me attention. Good-looking, fit women. She admitted she made a huge mistake and she messed up so badly. She is working on fixing things. I still get depressed, but we are working through it. I still want to tell the wife, but I don't want to risk the progress we have made this far. My therapist asked if that would make my situation any better and what the repercussions would be. So here we are. I guess I'm just letting you guys know it's possible. I see so many posts. How do I move on? What do I do? Is it possible? It is, but it still sucks. I still wonder. I logged into the Telegram account recently and saw he either blocked her or deleted his account. So there is that. 1 foot at a time. OP, are you working under the premise that your wife never got physical with this man while married to you? If so, you seem to be in denial when there is the type of dialogue between them that includes the words "love you, baby." There is always a chance that your wife has learned her lesson, but highly doubtful. You should expect a repeat performance somewhere down the line. Are you trying to save her embarrassment, or are you trying to save yourself embarrassment? You have nothing to be embarrassed about, and if you actually do undertake reconciliation, you need to inform everyone in your family and friend group. Lastly, you humanely have a right to inform this guy's wife of what happened. Do the right thing, bro. She deserves to know, and to not tell her because you risk a failed reconciliation is simply messed up. I wish you the best of luck, OP. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation, then please